really lucky. We have worked with Christina and the University Conference Center for many years now.
Many years, yeah.
And I feel like I was kind of joking with her earlier that we've always had at least a couple of our psychology majors help plan this workshop. So it's always been very informed. So Natalie and Ariana gave Christina some feedback. So it'll be really relevant to transfer students. And so feel free to speak up. I know there's a couple people on Zoom, so feel free to write in the chat. I'll monitor the Zoom, but I think this is a super important time. Today actually, and I know Ariana is going to talk more about it, it's the anniversary of Lauren McCluskey's death, which was here at the U of U. I was here, so I don't know how many years ago it was, but I've been here 11 years, so yeah. So we're gonna talk about it. So it's very important, but the other thing is we're not just gonna talk about it. We're gonna do some action. So we have flags and there's a display outside the union. So if you have time after the workshop, we're gonna put it in the display, and I think it looks really great. I think that's a great opportunity now for people to kind of check it out after our workshop.
Good morning, everybody. It's so nice to be here with you. As Paul mentioned, we've been doing this workshop every fall now for several years. And I always so enjoy working with Jennifer students. You all are amazing and all that you have going on in life and making this transition to the U. Please know that the Counseling Center is here to support you, and we'll go into more depth about that in a little bit. But just to give you a little background about who I am and kind of how we want to go about doing this workshop. So I am a clinical social worker by training. I've been in the field now for about 28 years, so it's been a minute. And I have a great passion about talking about interpersonal violence and how we can, as a community, work on promoting healthy relationships. So that's really going to be the focus of our workshop today. Please know, especially as we're a little bit of a smaller group, and for those of you who are online, really welcome your comments as well. I always feel like workshops become so much more interesting, engaging, and a better learning experience when we can use it as a form of dialogue. So really want to invite your comments, your questions. Let's make this a conversation. I think that's how we all learn best. And there's a lot of collective wisdom in the room. I really believe in that. So please know I want to invite you to participate actively throughout the workshop. So let's get started here. So we're going to start today with talking a little bit about the flag exhibit, which Paul has mentioned, and we're going to invite you to participate in. And then we're really going to start doing some what we call psychoeducation about what are healthy behaviors in relationships and what are unhealthy behaviors. And so we have a couple of videos to show you. Again, a great chance for us to have a conversation and dialogue. And then in the second half, Ariana is going to show a video about Lauren McCluskey. We really want to honor her and what she went through, a tragedy that her family and her community really experienced 7 years ago, and really was the tragic result of interpersonal violence. So I think it's very poignant that we're honoring the anniversary of her death today by having this conversation and by engaging in this work. Okay, so we can move on. All right, so what is the Flag Project? So the Flag Project was really born out of the experience I kept having in the group that I run at the Counseling Center for Trauma Survivors. So every year I run a processing therapy group for survivors of interpersonal violence. And that includes dating violence, domestic violence, sexual assault, childhood abuse, and stalking. So traumatic experiences for sure of an interpersonal nature. And one of the things that really struck me every semester when I run the group, invariably there would be a group member who would say, Christina, why didn't I know the signs? Why didn't I know what to look out for? Like, why did I have to learn this information and learn about red flags in abusive relationships by going through this traumatic experience? Why are we talking about this more as a culture, as a society? And so I decided that I wanted to create an experience that all of us as a community here could participate in and raise awareness about the issue of interpersonal violence. And so that's where this flag project began. And so I started doing these workshops, and the idea is for the members of the workshop participants to engage in this communal dialogue. Not only by learning what are healthy and unhealthy behaviors in relationships, but by adding your own voice to the exhibit. So that's in effect what we will be doing today, and that's why you have the flags there in front of you. Hopefully there's enough markers to go around. I want to invite all of you, as you're listening to today's workshop and engaging in it, there's particular behaviors that are healthy, that really strike you or resonate with you. Please feel free to write those on the green flags. And then for those that are more toxic, unhealthy behaviors, we're going to be reviewing 10 of each, but there's plenty more. You're welcome to add the toxic ones to the red flags. And then with those, we're going to, at the end of the workshop, for those who are interested, go down to the flag exhibit, which is up this week. So it's in the lawn space there in front of the union. And so it'd be wonderful if you all could plant your own flag and participate in the conversation that way. The information I'm going to be giving you today, again, very relevant. It all comes from an organization called One Love. And One Love was actually started by the parents of Yardley Love. Yardley was a student at the University of Virginia. In 2011, she was murdered by her boyfriend. So as part of their process, parents' process of grief and recovery, they decided to establish One Love, a nonprofit organization, with the mission of really reaching out to our country and the world to educate about what are healthy and unhealthy behaviors in relationships. So it's a really powerful and an incredible organization. Highly recommend that you check it out. All these materials that you have in front of you, many of what's on the presentation come from that organization. I love part of the mission of One Love. It's just really trying to emphasize and let people know that we all deserve to be in healthy relationships. And by relationships, I do want to emphasize that it doesn't have to mean dating or romantic. We want healthy relationships across the spectrum of the ways in which we relate to people, right? So certainly dating or romantic partners, of course, but friendships, roommates, classmates, family members, all of us deserve to be in healthy relationships. And the opposite is also true. Toxic behaviors can cross boundaries in whatever type of relationship it is. And so to that end, I want to really, so we're talking about this idea of a conversation and having all of us engage in this. Please know that no human is perfect, right? So as you're looking at some of these signs, I'm hoping that as you're looking at the healthy behaviors, you're like, oh yeah, I do this thing, or my partner, or my family member, my friend, I've seen these behaviors. You might also see some things that you recognize in the unhealthy behaviors. Again, we're humans, and so we want to just keep growing. So part of this presentation is to educate all of us and not to engage in more shaming or blaming. That's actually part of the toxic signs of unhealthy behaviors in relationship. Instead, we want to encourage learning and a sense of compassion and kindness towards ourselves, but accountability as well. So education about like, okay, this might be an area that I need to work on. I might need to figure out what could be some new patterns, some new ways of engaging with people in a healthy manner. So an interesting thing in talking about interpersonal violence is that it really knows no bounds. Interpersonal violence crosses all barriers, any type of identity that people have, there has been experiences of abuse. So it knows no boundaries in regards to race, religion, socioeconomic level, country, language. It crosses all barriers, unfortunately. And an interesting thing to note is that I think especially mainstream American culture, but I think in other countries and cultures as well, we romanticize a lot of unhealthy behaviors. As we see this in the media, as we see this in shows and movies, we romanticize a lot of things that are really actually quite toxic. So it's a difficult thing when you're trying to talk about these topics or these behaviors when it might not ever been named as abusive. Might never have been seen or called for what it is. So again, all the more reason for us to have this conversation. The other thing I want to point out is that and I certainly have seen this with a lot of my clients, is that if you grew up in a home in which a lot of unhealthy, toxic, or even abusive behaviors were part of the dynamic of your daily relationships, it's love is learned. So healthy and unhealthy behaviors are learned. So while it is true that a lot of people who engage in unhealthy behaviors have basically repeated what they have grown up with. They have seen that in others and have seen that in their family, and that might be what they know to do. They don't know anything new. However, having said that, that doesn't mean that if you did grow up in an abusive home, that you are bound to repeat those unhealthy behaviors. That is not true. And what's the difference? What do you all think would make a difference? If somebody has come from that type of pattern and witnessed those behaviors. Why do you think some people do end up repeating it and some people don't? What do you think the difference is there? Yeah,
And I think maybe if they saw the repercussions of it while growing up, if they saw that those unhealthy behaviors led to different outcomes, they'd be more likely to never really plan.
excellent. Very good point. Yes, absolutely. Now, one thing is also true that as human beings, I think we tend to repeat what we know until we learn something new. So not only are you right in saying that people who have witnessed that, experienced that, and they're like, I do not want to repeat that cycle. I don't want to keep an intergenerational cycle of violence going. But then they take the extra effort to learn something new. And that's the critical point. That's what changes and breaks the cycle of violence intergenerationally. So even if you're coming from a home where you might not have witnessed or been modeled healthy behaviors, please know there's always hope. You can always learn new ways of doing things, but you do need to take the initiative to learn something new. Again, if we don't know how to do something, how are we going to do it, right? So that's why being here, participating in this is an important step to that. Okay, so as we look at that list of healthy behaviors, let's talk about that. What are a couple of them that really stood out to you? What might be some that you think are really important in relationships? Yeah.
Something moving at a speed that feels comfortable for you. And if you're not sure, like usually your body will tell you, like it'll react. And so it's kind of maybe just turning into that communication.
Love that. So a comfortable pace, and that comfortable pace and how you're feeling about it is certainly centered in your body. I love what you're saying, Mariana, there. And our body is such a critical guide and where our instincts live. I'm kind of pointing to my gut because that's a certain important point. If you're feeling that things are making you uneasy or you're feeling a little, I'm not sure about this, I always want to encourage you to pay attention to that. Pay attention to what your gut is telling you. Good. And that comfortable pace, again, is something where you're both at the same level of engagement, right? When we're looking at unhealthy behaviors, we'll see how one of those red flags is that intensity and that very quick pace development of a relationship. Did you ever end up? Yeah.
Yeah, I think healthy conflict is what life's messy. Are you kind of into that and together instead of placing blames really firm?
Love that. Love that. If I may ask you, in your opinion, what do you think is part of healthy conflict? Like what would that mean?
Honestly, we probably conflict a lot has to do also with the trust issue of the relationship. You trust each other to kind of your concerns candidly and openly and work with someone instead of they just ending things. And you can work through a lot together.
I love that. Yes, I couldn't agree more. And it also kind of points to how all of these dovetail with one another, right? So if you have that trust, you have that openness, it will add to that better communication. Yeah. You also threw out an important word that was part of these signs of accountability. And, you know, on this list, I think that equates into taking responsibility. So an important thing in healthy conflict, I would suggest are things like I statements. So that I statement is a reflection of, hey, you know, I ended up, my feelings were hurt when you engaged in X behavior. And if there's that trust and there's that openness and that partner is willing to take accountability, they'll want to listen to that. They'll want to ask like, oh, okay, I didn't know that my behavior needed to be that way. I'm sorry. A sincere apology is one in which there's going to be not only sincere, I'm sorry, but there aren't going to be any buts to it. No buts are allowed. And what do I mean by that? So here's an apology, non-apology. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry that what I did upset you, but if you hadn't done blah de blah, then I wouldn't have had to do that. So I've had the fortune and privilege of working with survivors of violence since I was in grad school. And I've had the opportunity to work with women, mostly women, I would say, but also men from across the world. And that's the classic formula of every perpetrator. I wouldn't have done X if you hadn't done Y. What does that statement really say?
It's your fault to respect them.
That's it. So somehow in that statement, I'm not responsible for my behavior, you are. And that's part of this strange and difficult component, or it gets really messy and hard to name in the development of abusive relationships. Because in abusive relationships, that mentality will show itself time and again. It's rather insidious the way in which it's done. Doesn't start from the very beginning like that. But time and again, and truly folks who engage in a lot of the unhealthy behaviors as a consistent pattern, truly believe that they are the victims. Which is a kind of a strange thing when you look at it from the outside, but when you're in it, the perpetrator honestly thinks that their violence is justifiable because of what the other person has or hasn't done, according to that. So that taking accountability piece is really critical. Good. Anything else anyone wants to mention about the healthy signs? So as we take a look at our 10 signs, again, similar to the healthy behaviors, you'll see a lot of overlap, right, in these. So of these 10, what really stands out to you? What are some of those things that really caught your attention that you might want to comment on? Isolation, yeah.
You're asleep, your partner from without lockdown.
Yes, very good point, very good point. Do you have a sense of kind of how that's in a relationship or ways in which it's masked?
Yeah, like if they're like, oh, like, no, you can't go out with your friends because like you have to stay home with the kids, and then it's like, well, you're home, well, you have to be there too.
Absolutely. Yes.
Like,
Yeah,
like,
that's great.
it's sort of like make an excuse that doesn't actually make logical sense with the aim of like keeping you away.
That's right, yeah. In the beginning stages of a relationship, there's often, as part of this red flag of the intensity, there's that sense of the whirlwind romance, you know, and that's again how we romanticize it a lot in movies and shows. But this sense of, wow, this person's like totally into me, right? And they just want to spend every minute of every day with me. Wow, they must be, yeah, just so in love with me. And part of that isolation begins in this sort of, again, facade of romance, which is like, well, why do you have to go hang out with your friends? Why do you have to go visit your mom? Why do you have to go spend time with, you know, X, Y, or Z? Because that takes time away from us. If you really love me, I'm so into you. I just want to spend every minute of every day with you. Why would you want to spend time with anybody else? Because that takes time away from the relationship. Notice how that is portrayed then, right? There's that, I think that means they really like me or that they're really into me. How sweet, how romantic. And that's how some of these behaviors are portrayed and missed, you know, when they're first exhibited. Another thing that can happen with that isolation component is a fight will ensue anytime the person does engage in contact with their support system. So let's say somebody does go and hang out with their friends for an evening or goes to visit family. And then when they come back and are next with their partner, then that partner is sullen, is basically kind of throwing a tantrum. And inevitably it'll be like, you know, well, every time you go and spend time with your friends, you come back in such a bitchy mood, what the perpetrator will say. Like, I don't understand why you had to leave. Why didn't you answer the phone when I called you 10 million times while you were with your friends? Part of that possessiveness, right? But so what will happen is that as conflict ensues after the victim at that point has been in contact with their support system, inevitably to just keep the peace, the person will be like, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm just not gonna go see my girlfriend anymore. That way I can just kind of keep the calm and go back to the person that I originally fell in love with, which was that whirlwind romance, right? So keep the peace. So little by little, all of that support system gets cut away. And more increased isolation takes place.
Christina, there's a
Yeah.
question in the chat. It says, if you could give an example of volatility.
Volatility, yes, that's a great question. So with volatility, it really is like a temper tantrum in an adult, which can be really scary and frightening and dangerous. So with things that for those who aren't engaged in abusive behaviors, might be stressful situations or maybe frustrating ones. It's suddenly, boom, this huge explosion, oftentimes in the beginning with verbal and emotional abuse. And then it typically can escalate into physical. So I'll give an example. There was a video that was showing like the development of an abusive relationship in a traditional college age couple. And the boyfriend is asking the girlfriend, why didn't you answer your phone? I texted you 25 times. Why didn't you answer? And she says, well, I was out with my friend Katie. And it's like, so you didn't hear your phone? Why did you hear your phone? And you see it, you hear the tone of his voice starting to escalate. And at one point, then he grabs her phone and smashes it against the wall. So again, I'm sure all of us have had the experience of wanting to get in touch with somebody and we might send them a couple of text messages or calls, but then they'll say like, hey, I was with my friend Katie, or I'm in class, or got this project due. And again, for those of us who can emotionally regulate a little bit better, yeah, maybe it's frustrating you don't get in touch with the person that you wanted to at the moment you wanted to, but it passes, right? You're about to go and smash their phone. But with somebody who is volatile, things can escalate from 0 to 90 on the spin of a dime. And so that volatility creates for the victim a sense of always walking on eggshells. There's always a feeling like, is that going to set you off? What's going to set you off? And for survivors, what they're typically doing is they're thinking 20 steps ahead, like, okay, if I say this thing or if I do this thing, how is this my partner going to react? Because there's always that anticipation of danger, rightly so. And so there's always that sense of, is this going to set this person off? So it's a really anxiety-ridden experience. And it's challenging because interwoven into the periods of volatility and abuse, the person who they fell in love with originally, Prince Charming or Princess Charming, comes back. And then there's these periods where everything's great again. And it's like, wow, okay, this is the person I fell in love with. So I don't know whatever else that was, but they're back. How fantastic. And that idea is constantly of how do I keep that stage of the relationship going while all of these signs start to emerge? Great question. Any other comments about abusive behavior?
Yeah, it's in the same relation.
Yeah.
When someone tries to control your decisions, actions, or emotions, I feel like this one is so ridiculous. I feel like, and sometimes when you were in love, I think it's just so hard to see this type of manipulation. This paper has a really good example. If you really love me, you would give it to me. And sometimes if you're in love, you just, yeah, totally. I'm in love with this person. I'm gonna give it all to you. And it's just so hard to like kind of think rationally.
Yes.
Right, so
Yes, it's such a good observation. Thank you. Yeah. As you were speaking, an example came to my mind, especially, and I think our handouts highlight the digital forms of abuse, right? But one thing that comes to my mind with manipulative behavior is passwords, like sharing passwords. Like, if you really loved me, you would let me get onto your phone and go through all your text messages, right? So what's your password, right? If you really loved me, let me do that. Send me photos. Send me photos, because again, if you really loved me and you really cared about me and you want this relationship to go somewhere, then you're going to do this, whatever X behavior is. Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Okay, what about if like both, like they both each other agree to like share?
Yeah.
The password, is that?
That's great.
Okay.
Whatever, if both parties are in agreement and be like, hey, and that I can process all sorts of situations, like if you want to talk about physical intimacy, consent is the critical component there, right? Consent is what marks the difference. And so, and consent isn't a one-time thing, right? It's something that needs to be a continual dialogue. So be it password sharing, picture sharing, physical intimacy, if both parties are like, yeah, like I want to do this and I feel comfortable saying no, because I know that if I said no, that boundary is going to be respected, we're good to go. Have fun. But if that person is feeling manipulated, coerced, pressured, doesn't, feels that fears that volatility. Like, God, if I say no, is my phone gonna get smashed against the wall? Is that person going to throw another tantrum? And then I'm gonna feel so guilty. Guilting is another one, right? So it's totally fine as long as both parties are in full agreement and feel, and there is respect to the no. Like, I don't feel comfortable sharing that picture with you, so, yeah. And the person's like, cool, got it, moving on. Yeah, great question.
I was just gonna say, like, I think passive aggressiveness can be so manipulative and it's very hard to.
Yeah. Absolutely. Do you have any example that comes to mind that could illustrate that?
I think just like in general, when they like expect you to with your mind, and then like if you don't, then they're kind of like, no, it's fine, I just don't care. And it's like you can kind of tell from the tone or like the way that they're kind of giving you full shoulder that their words are not matching up with expression.
Beautifully said. And there's this assumption that like, well, obviously you don't care enough about me because you didn't read me fully.
And I'm not gonna actually tell you directly exactly what I want, I'm just because you have done it and say that.
Yeah. And again, I want to put like that's a great example of something that perhaps all of us at some point in our lives have engaged in, you know. So yes, while it's not healthy behavior, that is one that we can learn what to do different. For example, one thought that comes to my mind, and I don't want to generalize to everybody, but I think there's something to be said that for a lot of the ways in which women are socialized, is oftentimes women aren't socialized to speak up for their needs. So then there can become that like, well, if this person really loves me, they'll know what my needs are. And again, I don't know of our human capability to read minds. Now, while I want to promote, if we're in any type of relationship, I want to promote that a partner be sensitive and try to find out, like, well, does this work for you? How are you feeling about this? I also want to encourage both partners to be able to say, you know what, this is what I want, or this is what I need from you. I think we have a higher chance of getting our needs met when we speak about it. We both.
I'm Raleigh, and I am in Princeton Transfer, I'm Society Vice President. I am also double majoring in criminology and forensic psychology. I remember first learning about Lauren's case back in 2018. I'm 37, so I definitely have had her case on my mind and coming here, and then we're also going to be doing an event in November. And I realized that when we were doing this workshop, that it was the anniversary, the 7th anniversary of when she was murdered. So 7 years ago, University of Utah, she was 21, track star, senior. And the weeks leading up to her murder, she had met and started dating a bouncer that she met at a bar downtown Salt Lake. And what signs or red flags did you notice? It just about a little bit. Go walk around the sheet. Go over.
Possessiveness, because when Lauren would go out and hang out with her friends, he would always be calling her, like, where are you? And I guess conflict with parents, I don't know if that's manipulation. But to making her feel guilty as well too. That's kind of what I want to make her.
Wasn't shown a lot, but very well, but he was very all the time, just like. Wasn't specific to me.
He was, and it was more, he gets more volatile after the breakup. So she kind of noticed this, tried to talk to him, and then he was like lying and taking responsibility, accountability, kind of like shoved it off. And she just knew in her gut, but once again, he's probably coerced her and convinced her to let him stay the night, and she was scared. And so it wasn't until the next morning where this phone call is where she basically, her mom's worried about her safety. She's like, I just want to get my car back, kind of sort of thing, and I want to be done with this. And then he drops it off, but the police officer, they basically call her back and they ask if she like an escort, and he drops it off. And it just kind of snowballs from there. So, don't go to the next thing. You can go to the next one. So these are kind of the key red flags and warning signs we see. Deception and misrepresentation. He lied about his age, his criminal record, as a registered sex offender. Lying about one's identity can be an earlier indicator of a deceptive and controlling personality. Usually most relationships can take months, if not years, to uncover. And it was, I think she just saw that, his driver's license. Luckily for Lauren, she had something in her gut, and she just knew something was off. Most of us, it takes a long time to like feel that, actually unfold it. Back in 2018, we don't have what we have now with social media and being able to like look at someone's background. So the fact that she did that in 2018 was pretty, just all that gut and that intuition. Rapid moving relationship, love bombing. He really quick, really fast, was like, I love you, spent every day with her, was living with her and her roommate, really intensity. She probably was used to that kind of attention from a man. And so at first it probably felt really good. And then it turned scary. Jealous, controlling behavior, where she's out with her friend at Target, and he's like, where were you, what you, blah, 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 why are you answering, that type of thing. And he basically got to the point where he was actually tracking her. And then all through campus, and they have like video surveillance showing him like leading up to date where he murdered her, where he'd like come on campus in costume and wait for her, and he like knew all of her friends and was able to get into the residence. And it just goes to show like the level of like just crazy escalation. And the key thing was that he was able to look into Lauren's emails, and he found out that she was actually trying to communicate with the campus police and Salt Lake City Police Department. And when he saw that, he basically decided to kill her because he didn't want to go back. Isolation from support system, her friends, her family. I think it wasn't until she went back home and she was with her family, she discovered all this, and she kind of had this, aha. Like sometimes it just takes that one moment to get away or out of it to where you feel safe and where you can actually take action. And I mean, she was brave enough to do it, but unfortunately lost her life. The next one. Extortion, manipulation, this is where the story kind of further moves on. Basically, after she tries to break up with him, he comes after her, tries to manipulate her, tells her that he's gonna show off her photos, sexy photos that she sent him. It's all over him that everyone she knows. She ends up sending him money, that's considered coercion, that's a felony, and that was ultimately like, what's the one thing that they could tie and get me was like the Venmo and all of that. And so he tries to give it back to her, and it's just this huge thing. And then the escalating volatility, basically, he felt rejected, he was frightened, he demanded the money, everyone's photos, and then basically she goes on to like repeatedly contact campus police. And then campus police tell her she needs to call the Salt Lake City Police Department, and then they kind of ping pong like this. Back in 2008, we didn't have what we have now. The B2 movement was just hadn't even happened. And so they just didn't quite believe her, or there was no real protocol for this. And it just, 9 days. And there was just, I think, over 20 or 30 like phone calls of her trying to be like, I had an issue, blah, blah. And basically, she was a very sweet, kind person who didn't want to really like show how much fear she was in, but she was in fear. And so they just didn't take her seriously because she never used the word violent or physically aggressive. She just basically was like, this is what he's doing, blah, blah. And she kind of just didn't show a lot. She didn't want to be dramatic. She didn't want to be, like, oh, they'll handle it, they'll take care of it. And unfortunately, they just didn't take it serious enough. And not only that, with the officers that she sent everything to, the photos, they actually went around and were showing them. And it became this huge thing. And the University of Utah, although, yes, they were at fault, so were the Salt Lake City Police Department. However, ultimately, her legacy is that the campus safety that we have now is because of her. We have so many protocols, her family, they started the Lawrence Promise. And they basically go around to like the nation and all the campuses and names like the protocol, mandatory text message.
Well, thank you so much, Ariana. Such an impactful story, and one that, of course, is so pertinent to all of us, sort of here in town. As we get ready to wrap up, any other comments or questions either about what you saw with Lauren's documentary or anything else that we've been listening to? Yes.
So what do you do if you're like a part of that support group of a civil victim? And like, not only understand what you do while they're in it, but what if they do leave it, like, is there anything else, is there any additional support you need to give them?
Absolutely, it's a great question, yeah, and actually, I, in my folder handout, I have a printout about how to help people who are in an abusive relationship, or they just left. I think an important part of support is validation and listening. So really being able to hear through what the person's gone through. For those, like, for people who become partners of abuse survivors, I always think it's really helpful for partners to become trauma informed so that you can know how to support your partner after an abusive relationship, because they're likely to experience triggers. And so kind of knowing more about what are trauma symptoms and how to be of support can really be beneficial. And the Counseling Center will be happy to help with those concerns.
When Lauren's she was very vocal or was classically to the full extent what was going on, because she was unburdened. But the moment she stopped taking care of herself, wasn't going to school, wasn't going to practice is when a friend stepped in and basically didn't want to initially ask for this, so you should check with your friends, you see that shift behavior. But yeah, they're not taking care of themselves, not coming down, the others not having days with the others, really different.
And one thing that's important to know is again, that, abusive relationships, abusive person doesn't start out being abusive. If they did, then people wouldn't be involved in them in the first place. So inevitably, there's a period of time in which, both partners feel in love with the other. And how easy is it for any of us to just leave, walk away from somebody that we love? So I think being able to be respectful of the people who have gone through these relationships. It's not terribly useful to attack the abusive partner when you're trying to provide support to the survivor, because inevitably that ultimately leads to them typically getting defensive. Like again, somebody attacks somebody that we love, you kind of be like, hey, wait a minute, right? But you can point out behaviors, like, hey, I'm concerned when this person doesn't allow you to hang out with friends. Or I'm concerned that they're continuously checking on your phone. That type of behavior strikes me as worrisome, So you can offer some opinions about a person's behavior that is concerning. That might also help rather. I know we're a little bit over our time, so I just wanted to wrap up by offering this QR code. If you all want to bring out your phones, this will lead you to the Dean of Students webpage that has a list of all of the mental health resources that we have available on campus. At our counseling center, we offer free therapy, both individual, couples, and group therapy. We have workshops available. We can do outreach as well. So please feel free to come and check us out, get support if you're in need of it, or if you know somebody who you think might be benefit from doing some counseling. Please know that's what we're here for. So, wonderful. I think I have one more slide just of visits with Wally. So, if any of you really like to spend time with this beautiful creature that I work with. I try to bring him out on campus once a week. One comes to the counseling center with me every day. But once a week on campus, I bring him out so that people can come and say hi and love on him. And he really enjoys his job. He loves loving on students, as you can see.
So
So
I was on Instagram.
he is on Instagram. He is still on Instagram account. And there's some really cute fun reels with Lolly. So yeah, so he is a fully trained service dog, but we call him a facility dog. I don't have a disability, so he's here to provide service to our facility, which is our new campus. So thank you all so very much for your time today. Please know that I'm here if you have any other questions. And I wish you all healthy, happy, and safe relationships. Thank you.